1939, a few months before the start of the Second World War, Nazi Germany. After approximately 304,000 Jews emigrated, only about 214,000 of them remain in the country. 6 years of Nazi-sponsored legislation have marginalized and disenfranchised Germany's Jewish citizenry and have expelled Jews from their professions and from commercial life. Only about 16% of the Jewish breadwinners have steady employment of any kind, and the worst is yet to come. After the outbreak of the Second World War, which begins on the 1st of September 1939, Nazi anti-Jewish policy becomes even more radical. The war brings accelerated persecution, deportation, and later mass murder to the Jews of Germany. The responsibility for solving the so-called Jewish question, which is the annihilation of the European Jews, belongs to the SS. Its member number 2 is a man who, despite his Jewish origins, is also a close friend of Adolf Hitler himself. His name is Emil Maurice. Emil Maurice was born on the 19th of January, 1897, in Westermoor, then part of the German Empire. During the First World War, which lasted from the 28th of July 1914 till the 11th of November 1918, Maurice served in the Bavarian Army, but he never fought in the Great War. After World War I ended, Germany experienced great political turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh terms on Germany, which had lost the war. In addition, the country saw the overthrow of its monarchy. In its place was the new Weimar Republic, a democratic government. Racist and anti-Semitic groups sprang up on the radical right and blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in the war. These groups opposed the Weimar Republic and the Treaty of Versailles. They were against democracy, human rights, capitalism, socialism, and communism. They advocated to exclude from German life anyone who, according to them, did not belong to the German people or race. In September 1919, Hitler attended a meeting of one of these groups in Munich, the German Workers' Party, where he also met Emil Maurice. This small political organization sought to convert German workers away from Marxist socialism. At the meeting, Hitler's public speaking skills attracted notice, and he was recruited to a leading role. In 1920, Hitler changed the party's name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. National Socialism was a racist and anti-Semitic political theory. It had been developed in Hitler's native Austria as the antithesis of Marxist socialism and communism. Marxists, for example, advocated for the global solidarity of the world's workers and called for the abolition of nation-states. National Socialists, however, sought to unify members of the German people in complete obedience to the state. They called for a strong state to lead the master race in the racial struggle against inferior races, especially the Jews. The new party needed a security service, so Maurice took the initiative and in November 1920 founded a gymnastics and sports club, which in October of the following year was renamed the Sturmabteilung, also known as the SA. The main purpose of the SA was to protect Nazi party meetings, disrupt the meetings of opposing political parties, and provide muscle and security for party members. The SA was instrumental in Adolf Hitler's rise to power by helping to maintain control during rallies, marching in street parades, and instilling fear in political opponents. The SA were colloquially called brown shirts because of the color of their uniform shirts, similar to Benito Mussolini's black shirts. One of the SA's first organized activities was the Munich beer hall Putsch, which took place on the 8th and 9th of November 1923, when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party led a coalition group in an attempt to overthrow the German government. The plotters hoped to march on Berlin to launch a national revolution, but the insurrection failed miserably. Units of the Munich police force clashed with the Nazi stormtroopers as they marched into the city center. The two groups exchanged fire, which resulted in the deaths of 16 Nazi Party members and 4 police officers. This attempted coup d'etat became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. Its ringleaders, including Adolf Hitler, were arrested. While Hitler was convicted of high treason and sentenced to 5 years in prison, Maurice was only sentenced to 15 months. He would spend several months in Landsberg Fortress until the beginning of 1925. Together with Hitler and 24 other Putsch participants, he was housed in the so-called fortress section of the prison, where the Putschists lived as a small community separate from the other prisoners in quite comfortable conditions. It was to Maurice that Hitler dictated the first pages of his autobiographical manifesto, Mein Kampf, meaning My Struggle, where he outlined his beliefs, political views, and plans for Germany. Later, Rudolf Hess took over this role. In the wake of the Putsch, the federal and Bavarian government banned the Nazi Party, its formations, and its newspaper. But after Hitler's release from prison, his public commitment to coming to power legally induced the authorities to lift the ban in 1925. The same year, Hitler ordered the formation of a new bodyguard unit, the Schutzkommando, or Protection Unit, and Maurice became one of its founding members. The same year, the Schutzkommando was expanded to a national level and renamed successfully to the Sturmstaffel, or Storm Squadron, and finally in November to the Schutzstaffel, or SS. Hitler became SS member number 1, and Emil Maurice became SS member number 2. In 1925, Maurice became Hitler's permanent chauffeur and bodyguard, and they were close friends on a personal level. In 1927, Hitler's niece, Geli Raubal, started studying medicine at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. Geli grew up without her father, and in 1923, Hitler became her custodian. Although they were related, and Hitler was 19 years her senior, the future Führer never let the charming Geli out of his sight. The handsome Maurice, with his small moustache and romantic eyes, was always there when Hitler took his niece to a lake for a picnic or a swim. During their trips, Maurice would drive an open black Mercedes with Hitler next to him and Geli sitting in the back seat. Hitler would show up everywhere with his niece and wanted others to see him with such a captivating woman. He was convinced that he was impressing his party associates with Geli, since with a few exceptions, he hated their wives and girlfriends. 4 days before Christmas in 1927, Hitler's private secretary, Rudolf Hess, was getting married after a 7-year engagement, and among the wedding guests were Geli Raubal and Emil Maurice. At the reception, Hitler and Maurice slipped away to gossip at a nearby tavern, and Maurice used the opportunity to reveal to Hitler his hidden feelings towards Geli. He told him of his recent engagement and formally asked for his niece's hand in marriage. Instead of congratulations, however, Hitler was furious and stormed out of the tavern in a rage. The stormy debate continued the next day in the Führer's apartment, even in the presence of Geli. He threatened Maurice with a revolver and demanded that the couple break up immediately. Maurice was then dismissed from Hitler's personal service in 1928, but he decided to sue Hitler in the Munich labor court for an immediate release from his job. He won the case, and according to the verdict, Hitler had to pay 800 marks. Rudolf Hess consequently suspended Maurice's membership with the SS. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, wanted to persecute Maurice for the trial that Maurice had won against Hitler in 1928. Maurice went directly to the new German Chancellor to seek help, and to his surprise, an unexpected reconciliation occurred between him and Hitler. The Führer not only forgave him for the affair with his niece Geli, but also revoked his suspended SS membership and arranged for his promotion. Maurice became a senior SS officer and would eventually be promoted to the rank of SS Oberführer. While Maurice never became a top commander for the SS, his status as SS member number 2 effectively credited him as an actual founder of the organization, whereas Heinrich Himmler only had SS member number 168. During the Night of the Long Knives, which was the murder of the leadership of the SA, which took place between the 30th of June and the 2nd of July 1934, Maurice allegedly shot to death Edmund Heines and his boyfriend. It is also believed that he killed the Roman Catholic priest Bernhard Stempfler, who had been talking about Hitler's relationship with Geli Raubal. Maurice became engaged in March 1935 to a medical student, Hedwig Maria Anna Plötz. In order to get married, however, he needed approval from Himmler. This was part of the strict control and regulation over the personal lives of SS members, as Himmler aimed to ensure that their marriages aligned with the racial and ideological principles of the Nazi regime. All SS officers had to prove racial purity back to 1750, and it turned out that Maurice had 1/8 Jewish ancestry. Charles Maurice Schwarzenberger, the founder of the Thalia Theatre in Hamburg, was his great-grandfather, and also a Jew. Himmler considered Maurice to be a serious security risk given his Jewish ancestry. The Reichsführer SS recommended that Maurice be expelled from the SS, along with other members of his family. To Himmler's annoyance, Hitler stood by his old friend, and in a secret letter written on the 31st of August, 1935, Hitler compelled Himmler to make an exception for Maurice and his brothers, who were informally declared Honorary Aryans and allowed to stay in the SS. Maurice eventually got married in November 1935 in Munich. In 1936, he became a Reichstag deputy for Leipzig, and from 1937 was the chairman of the Munich Chamber of Commerce. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. From 1940 to 1942, he served in the Luftwaffe, the German Air Forces, as an officer. World War II in Europe ended on the 8th of May 1945. The same month, American forces captured Maurice in Starnberg, and in 1948 he was tried and sentenced to 4 years in a labor camp. He then returned to his life as a watchmaker, and in 1951 owned a watch shop in Munich. Emil Maurice was 75 years old when on the 6th of February 1972 he died in Munich, West Germany. There were no tears shed for Emil Maurice. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.